Hi AOS fans, Robin here, back again with another Word Wednesday post. And this week's word is puberty. Puberty, because I'm looking at Help Your Kids with Growing Up from Dorling Kindersley books, DK books. And it's got Robert Winston's name on the front cover. He's kind of like the Lord Robert Winston, I should say. He's the kind of editor-in-chief, or he writes the foreword, but there's various contributors to this book. And I wanted to look at this book because I have a 12-year-old, and obviously he's right on the threshold of puberty and the terrifying teenage years. So I thought I'd have a look and see whether this book was useful. Now, it's rather different from a lot of our Agents of Sigma coverage. Puberty for me was sort of funny shaped dice and sitting around a table with piece of paper and wondering why all the girls liked the boys who looked like they were in Duran Duran. Kind of have an idea why that was now. Anyway, so puberty now, possibly physically much the same, but emotionally and the pressures and things, I think, well, feel like they're quite different. And this book kind of goes into all of that. And it's a really helpful, I have to say, this is probably the most important video / book review I've ever done, because this book, I think, is an absolute gem. And it's hard to know, I haven't been through it, but I feel like it's going to be invaluable. And I feel like if you've got teenagers, or about to have teenagers, then this book will be extremely useful. And it's priced $14.99. I'm not sure what the US dollar price is. I'll get Big to flash that up. But it's a great book. You can see it's bright, it's vibrant. There's quite a bit of text, but there's also diagrams, almost an infographic style, going back to last week's word. And it's broken down into various sections. So there it is. So I'll just quickly go through the sections. They're not handily written on the back for me. So the contributors, there's Professor Robert Winston's a consultant, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 contributors, various experts in their field. So there are the 12 chapters. So we've got Growing Up, Female Puberty, Male Puberty. I don't actually need the female puberty chapter. I've only got 2. I've got 3 boys. So anyway, the Growing Up, Female Puberty, Male Puberty, Healthy Body, Healthy Mind, Achieving Potential, Digital Life, Wider World, Families, Relationships, Sexuality, and at the end, Sex. And to be honest, all of those chapters are vital for going forward into the next sort of period of our parenting life. So Growing Up, it talks about how identity evolves, what to do when identities clash, why they clash, about thinking independently, and it talks a lot about the kind of emotional side of it, but also the scientific side as well. So why teenagers start to question at this point and how their brain develops. To give you a bit of context and understanding that there is actually definite reasons, like the need to sleep more and things like that. The definite reasons why some of this behaviour, which is sort of frustrating and vexing to deal with, why it happens, and just being able to read it. And some of the stuff is kind of feels like it's stating the obvious, but actually, and you know it when you read it. Oh yeah, of course. But when you having it written down in such a concise, clear way that you can both share. This book is intended to be shared with your teenagers. They're meant to read it. There are sections for I'll come on to that, but there are sections for them and for you to read and to read together. To have it explained in a concise way makes you realise that you're not alone and it's not abnormal, and these things are going through across the globe, everywhere. Everybody's going through the same kind of stuff, and it's really, really helpful in that respect. Self-expression. So I know teenagers classically want to. I was a very conservative teenager, so I've got some shocks ahead of me coming, I think. But the reasons for self-expression, what self-expression means, and it's really trying to head off those kind of clashes that might occur as you get older, trying to sort of explain why they happen. So, because I think really the teenage thing that scares me most about the teenage year is the constant loggerheads that I feel like might happen. I can already see it happening, and this book just helps you just take a step back from that and sort of work with your teenager to get through those things rather than butting up against each other. There's a big section on gender. I really like this about the book, the gender section. Okay, that's not a big section on gender. That's only a couple of pages on gender. But if we sort of skip right to the back, we've got sexuality, which I know sexuality and gender aren't the same. But to me, this is a big difference from when I was a teenager. I can remember when I was a teenager, even though it was a long time ago. The way people talk about sexuality and gender is very different, and the sort of understanding of it seems to be very different. It's much more out in the open now, and this book deals with that. And people of my generation perhaps don't necessarily understand some of the terminology or some of the complex issues involved around that, and this breaks them all down really nicely. And I think that's really important for young people dealing with the kind of these changes that are going on. Really important to understand that they are, it's the world is a melting pot. There are many different people, many different sexualities. Gender is fluid, and I think we are. I'm in danger of using horrible wrong words. I apologise if I do. But I think this book is great at setting the tone of understanding and making you feel confident in your own skin. The big message from the book is about sort of being kind to yourself. Realise what your good points are, and there's a lot of stuff around not how do they call it? A lot of stuff around body confidence here, the changing body section. In the male puberty bit, and there's a female puberty. There's a female puberty bit. I have to confess, I haven't read the female puberty bit, but it's got all the stuff in there you might need to know about periods, the menstrual cycle, and sanitary care and things like that. And getting the right sure how important a bra fits is really important. And the male puberty, which I understand a little bit more about, how the physiological changes. The testosterone rise and things like that, all here in an easy way to understand. And then it talks about in both sections about body confidence, really important for young people today. So much about so much in social media and the media generally about perfect bodies and all that sort of thing, beach body ready, all that rubbish. And this book really hones in on being yourself is what's important, being confident in yourself and how to promote that as parents. And again, it's kind of obvious you want to do that for your children, but it just helps give you a few ideas of how to do that. Body hair, spots, healthy eating, the importance of healthy eating. We're in the healthy body section now. And then it's a little bit on eating disorders. This healthy eating bit is quite important. For example, in our house, my son's just gone up to secondary school, and he's a good lad, and we've been trying to eat healthy, but now he can choose what he wants to eat, and it's quite nice to have an easy to understand and independent corroboration of the things we're saying to him, not drinking too many fizzy drinks and stuffing yourself on crisps and chocolate bars, which I did at that age, why it's important not to. And this is easy to read, independent corroboration of a lot of things you'll be telling your children anyway, but I suppose it's the accessible corroboration of this book is a part of its draw for me. Exercise, the importance of exercise. Again, my son used to exercise a lot less inclined to now, wants to play on the computer a lot more. Sleep, why you shouldn't have your screens upstairs before bed. A bit of a challenge in our house at the moment. Then healthy mind, again, this is quite different from when I was a child or a teenager. The mental health in teenagers is a much bigger, not issue, it's the wrong word, but there's much more focus on it now, which is really important. And this just helps with sort of teen emotions and building self-esteem and things like that. And the book has different coloured sections, so it has like teen hints, these are in this blue section, parenting tips for leading by example, and they're both, it's important to read both really for both of you, because you get an understanding of A, where your parents are coming from, and B, where your child is coming from, and they do give you things to help. There's yellow ones or yellowy orange ones, the Mythbuster, the truth about self-harm, for example. As I said, there's a section on self-harm in the healthy mind section, which is where you'd expect it. And then there's green sections, which are good to know. So they're just things like the the stigma around mental health. Sometimes people find it much more difficult to admit to having problems with their mental health than they will with their physical health. This is because of the stigma. Mental illness, however, is in fact very common. It's important to talk about openly with friends and family. Being frank about mental illness enables those who are experiencing it to get the treatment and support they need. So there are these good to know sections in here throughout the book. And there's also alerts. When I find an alert, I'll bring it up. And then so moving on to achieving potential. So this is all about sort of good ways to study and why it's important to study, but also about why it's important to take a break, and how to revise for exams, how to start thinking creatively and solve problems. Because obviously as teenagers they will start to solve problems for themselves, and that will be frustrating for them when they can't. But it just gives you take a step back, and these are various ways you can look at it. Hobbies and interests, how to develop them. Should you develop them? Keeping that balance right. Money matters, some advice on money, all really helpful things. And then as you go further to the back, I was thinking this book is great, and then it really starts to kick in to its own, I think, as it gets to, you've got digital life, a massive worry for parents, I think, keeping your children safe on the internet, but not just safe, but just stopping them from being bullied or upset by things they see on the internet is a huge issue going forward. And this sets it out again in a way that you can both access, so you can both see where you're coming from on the page to help you tackle it together, because you don't want it to be us and them, you definitely want it to be collaborative, and this book is all about the collaborative. So there's stuff about the digital self and overshare, making judgments on the internet, so making sure that you don't believe everything you read on the internet. There's a fantastic picture of a kind of Brewer's drooped Eiffel Tower there, which I love, and a rabbit on the moon. And then online peer pressure, and cyberbullying, trolling. There's a fantastic icon of a troll there, which I really like. Troll on his keyboard. I actually really like the graphics in this. I don't know whether they're super cool or not, but I think to me they're very striking and very appealing to draw you in, keep you interested. And I found this book, I read late in the night, but I often find I fall asleep. I did not fall asleep in this book. I had to force myself to put it down because there's page after page of interesting stuff. The wider world. So where do they fit into the wider world? So we've got sections here on safer streets, so how to be careful when you're out and about. That'll apply to some teenagers more than others, but it's very important. Bullying, all the different types of bullying, exclusion, joining in, verbal bullying, body shaming, physical bullying, sexual bullying, cyberbullying, and then standing by and doing nothing. They're all covered in here. So I think is really great. Here's an alert, being self-aware. So this is about stereotypes, this section. There's a big section on discrimination, again, really important in the melting pot world we live in. And if people can get along better, obviously the world would be a much better place. Generally, I feel like I won't say that. Ignore that bit. So this, so discrimination and stereotypes. So there's an alert page here. Being self-aware, acknowledge your own prejudices, even if you don't act on them. I think anybody could find this bit useful, teenager or not teenager. Don't make judgments about others, and always respect other people and the way they live their lives. Think about how you would feel if you were the victim of discrimination. Challenge stereotypes when you witness them or hear them. Really important, that one. The amount of times it's a really hard thing to do. I myself are guilty of not having done that, and people need to do that more, I think. Let people know you support them if they are being discriminated against. So that's an alert section. There's a section on equality, gender equality, religion, a big section on religion, whether you be Buddhist, Hindu, Judaism, Sikhism, Islam, atheism, agnosticism and Christianity are included in there too. Citizenship, what it's like to be a citizen, the various, what it means. Understanding the news, so sort of going back to what was earlier in the digital life, making sure you can process the news. Alcohol, some information about alcohol, some good to know facts about hangovers. Decided to drink. Don't feel under pressure to drink alcohol because your friends are, because it seems like everyone is doing it. I mean, it's, again, sort of like obvious stuff, but there's parenting tips on how to encourage responsible drinking. So yeah, I think it's just got lots of really helpful information. Smoking in an easy, friendly, non-judgmental way throughout the book. So we've got drugs, there's information on all sorts of different types of drugs, the risks, the effects, and then there's a big page section there. I'll try. On drugs. Section 9, families, hugely important. So all the different types of families, young carers, single dad families, donors and surrogates, families without children, young parent families, nuclear families, single mum families, LGBTQ parent families, extended families, step-parent families, foster families, small families, pre-teen relationships, so how relationships change as your teen becomes more independent. It's covered in here. Creating structure. It's about routines and expectations. Again, another big thing in our house now is the expectation we have to do some work. Just little things like acknowledge the instances when your teen does something right, and particularly when they do something without being asked. An obvious thing, but really important and easy to forget in the hubbub and hurly-burly of daily life. Building trust, dealing with conflict, which is going to be a lot, empathising, negotiating, compromising. Saying sorry, the importance of saying sorry on both sides of the equation, because you are going to say things you don't mean, and you are going to do things wrong, and things are going to go wrong, and it's important to say sorry, and it highlights that in the book. Difficult events, separation and divorce, family illness and bereavement. Siblings, huge topic in our house at the moment, sibling rivalry. There's birth order, perfect, there's 3 here for me. This is mine, oldest child, middle child, youngest child, and just talking about how the relationship might change, you know, what you might need to do, what you might need to look out for. Really useful. Relationships, again, maybe hopefully not so much at 12, but as they get older, communication skills, the importance of communication, the importance of apologising again. Friendships, how friendships change, dealing with difficulties, jealousy, isolation and being left out, oversharing, toxic relationships. Peer pressure, big couple of pages on peer pressure. And then dating, the different types of dating, healthy dating, what's really important to do, how to deal with rejection, remember what that was like, healthy relationships. There's a good important chapter on a couple of pages. There's a healthy relationship and then a converse unhealthy relationship. So your diary was open, so I closed it, but I didn't read it, but wanted to let you know. And then the equivalent is, I read your diary. I can't believe what you wrote about me. So they're a bit over the top, maybe, but they explain the difference between, I suppose, equality. Let's figure out which movie to watch together. So this is respect, equality, trust, and safety. And the equivalent is lack of equality. You're so bad at choosing movies, I'll do it. What makes a healthy relationship? Supporting each other, spending time together, maintaining healthy boundaries, communicating openly. Unhealthy relationships, isolation from loved ones, emotionally demanding, guilt trips, short fuses. So there we go. Breakups, how to deal with those, inevitable breakups. And sexuality, so I mentioned this at the top of the video, really important chapter about, so we've got straight, gay, bisexual, asexual, aromantic and queer. Heterosexism. Heterosexism is the common assumption that someone's sexual identity is straight. For LGBTQ plus individuals, it can be exhausting to correct the same assumptions repeatedly. There's an alert on homophobia. And then there's a whole section on attraction and how it might work, to do if someone has a crush on you or when someone has a crush on you. And then ways of coming out, tough situations, how to help if your teen needs to come out. I think that's a really important section, and it's really well written. I really love that section. I think it's very good. And there's a whole section on sex, masturbation, virginity, intimacy, various things. I mean, yeah, it's orgasms. And then, of course, sexual reproduction, safer sex, what to do. Various methods. This is fairly standard stuff, but again, it's written in an accessible way. STIs, pregnancy choices, pornography. A section on pornography again. It talks about the digital age of pornography. Again, really important, and some ideas and some explore some of the issues around that. The problems of sexting and the revenge porn. All these things that we never had to deal with when we were children. They're all in here, and then at the very end, there's a whole section of places you can go to find out more, and a glossary of all the various terms in the book. Clickbait, I can see there, clickbait next to clitoris, there you go. So there's a massive glossary and an index, and I can't stress enough how great this book is. For 15 quid, it's got to be worth it. You might be able to pick it up cheaper elsewhere. It's got to be worth it. It's even if you just use one chapter of the book a couple of times, it's worth the money if it diffuses some of the tension or helps your teenager with something difficult they're going through. This is a great book, good and tough, accessible for everyone. This is going to be, I think, a vital part of our next 10 years or more. So that is Help Your Kids with Growing Up by Professor Robert Winston from DK. This is a public service announcement brought to you by Agents of Sigma. So it doesn't really marry up with our usual content, but I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you enjoyed that, please give us a thumbs up and do share. I think this is a really important book, so do share this around. And yeah, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed that, then perhaps we'll do something similar. We're going to keep going with these Word Wednesdays. Got some doozies coming up for you, so hopefully you'll enjoy those. In the meantime, have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.